Hello, hey guys, welcome everybody, and welcome to today's show. We have a very exciting topic today, and that is going to be overcoming channel conflict. If you have been in the channel space, okay, managing channel conflict is always trickier because sometimes you are going to have visibility into what is happening and sometimes you are not. And with the marketplaces, the visibility is not going to be as much as we had in the traditional environment. So we are going to have so much fun talking about that. If you're joining for the first time, we meet every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, and we talk about one topic related to e-commerce. So we are going to start with everybody's intros. Chris, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Sam. Great to be with everybody today. Chris Harrington, President and Operations Leader here at Gen Alpha Technologies. We provide e-commerce solutions for equipment manufacturers and parts distribution centers. So this is certainly a big topic. It comes up often with OEMs, and excited to just listen to what everybody has to say today.
Yeah, and the space that you have spent time, Chris, I think that is going to be one of the most complex channel. So we are definitely going to dig into what is the secret sauce there in that space so that others can learn. Thank you so much for being here, Chris.
Yes.
Okay, Steve, can I move to you next?
Sure. Thank you for having me. And it's wonderful to see Damon, Chris, Jeff, Dave, and yourself here. My name is Steve Rice. I'm from .com Jungle, and for over 20 years, we have been helping manufacturers and retailers make and implement wise technology choices. A lot of that has to do with the website, how it integrates, and pretty much anything that a customer-facing stakeholder would touch with their fingers, or their eyes. So thanks again for having me.
Okay, amazing. And with consumers, I think the channel complexity is going to be even greater, just because the channels are complex there. So thank you so much for being here, Steve. Now, Dave, can I move to you next, if you don't mind?
Of course. Hey, everybody. Dave Meyer with BusyWeb. BusyWeb is a growth marketing agency located out of Minneapolis. We have a small team of 20 folks that have been doing this for 22 years, and we help our clients generate interest and generate buzz without getting stung. I'll leave it for that for now.
Okay, amazing. And your experience is going to be super relevant as well, because the work that you do in the marketing automation and the SEO space, I know that people might not be able to think how the channel conflict is going to be related there. But you know what? Unless you have your channel mapped, you won't be able to manage your channel conflict. So thank you so much for being here, Dave.
You bet.
Okay, Damon, can I move to you next?
Sure, Sam. Thanks for having me. Just feel lucky to be part of the panel today. Damon Postalka, Exit Your Way. I help manufacturing e-commerce businesses grow and develop their exit plans and get them out of the businesses when the owners are ready to leave. So thanks for being here, or thanks for letting me be here. And I know this is going to be interesting.
And I'm pretty sure when these businesses come to you, Damon, channel conflict is going to be one of the problems that they might not even know. But they are going to have that, and you are probably fixing that without knowing it. So we are going to have so much fun digging into those stories. Thank you so much for being here, Damon. Okay, Jeff, can I move to you next?
Let's do it. Thanks for having me on. I'm honored to be here with other experts here in the field, looking to learn from others as well as joining the conversation. So True Focus Media, we help increase leads, get more sales, and boost SEO. And we typically do that through video marketing, website design, and e-commerce. So I'm looking forward to talking about channel conflict in some of those areas that we've helped the manufacturing companies with over the years.
And Jeff, obviously you spend a ton of time in the manufacturing space with some of the complex manufacturing business models. So your expertise is going to be super relevant, what you have done for them. Thank you so much for being here, Jeff.
Thanks.
All right. So we are going to dig right into the topic, and just to set the tone for today's episode, we are going to take everybody's perspective on what exactly is channel conflict. So when I heard this term first time, I think it was 10-15 years back. I just didn't know what channel conflict really is, to be honest. I got fascinated, I read about it, and then I felt no, there's something to it. I mean, this is a serious problem. So Chris, I am going to ask you, okay, so what exactly is channel conflict in your experience? How would you define it?
Okay. Well, I think the easiest way to bring it up is to say that the fear of channel conflict is what is preventing a lot of people from getting started in e-commerce, and it's leaving a lot of people behind. Okay, so I think that's a good way to kind of define it, because in the world that I participate in, traditionally heavy equipment manufacturers, construction, agriculture, specialty vehicles, they've really partnered with their distribution and dealer network to navigate the sales landscape. And together they have brought value to customers. So the end user has been typically using the dealer relationship to really establish the relationship with the manufacturer. And what's happening is, as companies, manufacturers specifically, are deciding to move products online to address the pressure that they're feeling to deliver better customer experiences, to get information, speed, and transparency of data to their customers, as they're starting to address that they need to potentially have something online, this idea of competing against their sales channel, whether that be their own salespeople or their distribution network, kind of comes to the surface. And it is what prevents, I think, a lot of people from getting started. So in the world that I'm in, that's typically what I'm experiencing. There's a lot of definitions of channel conflict, and I think that others on this broadcast will talk about some of the other things, but that's the world that I play in, where it's most often coming up.
And by the way, thank you so much, Chris, for bringing that fear part, because that's going to be always the trickiest part, even in my experience. When you talk about anything or making any changes related to your channel strategy, obviously right. The distributors, if you have the distributor channel, okay, they are going to freak out. Okay, the only way to manage the expectation is going to be clear communication and honest and transparent communication. The more upfront communication you have, the easier life you are going to get. Otherwise, you are going to lose your large distributors. Okay, and that is something nobody wants to see. So thank you so much for starting on fear and prevention as well. I mean, see, only through communication you can actually get onto the newer channels. You can develop those channels, but you need to also protect your existing channels. You can't afford to lose them. So the comprehensive channel strategy is definitely very handy. Thank you so much for that. So Damon, I'm actually going to move to you next. From your experience, obviously you spent a lot of time in the manufacturing space, in the channel space, and you have seen sort of the evolution. When you talk about these e-commerce conversations, they are not fun conversations. There's a lot of fear involved, as Chris said. So what is your experience? How would you define the channel conflict and channel conflict management?
Well, I think, Sam, really, Chris has lived this a lot longer than I have, from the standpoint of, both her working both in, company owned all the way through the sales channel, or distributor owned or dealership kind of models. And I think that's what people most think of when you think of channel conflict. The kind of channel conflict that I've had to deal with in companies as we're scaling them is, they may have only been selling through their own website or their website and or just on Amazon or something like that. Well, then they start, okay, now we've got somebody they get popular, right? And then they want to have, somebody wants to be a distributor for them. Well, okay, you do a distributor for them. How does your pricing work there? And then somebody wants to do reselling for them on say like a platform like Amazon, where I can have resellers selling for you. how do you control all the pricing? It's similar to what Chris has dealt with, but I've always dealt with it from the company standpoint. And quite honestly, channel conflict, like you said, is happening without you even knowing it. And one of the things that I see in our clients as we start to scale is we have to look at more channel cannibalization. Like you're going to get, and this is common, you don't even realize it, that other people might be selling your products, you don't even know it. You have, and you might be too low on one channel and if you're not looking cross channel and using the pricing across those channels to really understand where you want to go to maximize your profits. I mean, that's honestly, that's what we do a lot of is, if we can make more money on one channel, we'll tell people that. And we'll move people into those channels and move them around, or try to move them to your own website if you can make more money selling through there. That's the kind of channel conflict I deal with is around companies that haven't been at the level that the companies that Chris usually works with, where you don't have your MAP pricing set. The minimum advertised pricing, for people don't understand that, but you have to set those with your distributors or any resellers so you don't have that undercutting and those kind of things. But that's what I really see in the channel conflict are those kind of things.
So amazing insights there, and I like the way you have put it, that if you are making more money in one channel, that's okay as long as you are communicating the rationale for that. As long as you are communicating your strategic priorities. One thing that you don't want to do when you are dealing with a lot of different channels is, I like to define it as passive-aggressive couple, where you want the communication to be as open as possible. So when you are going to be in a situation where you don't know whether you might have channel conflict, these people should be able to come to us very comfortably and communicate that, hey, buddy, you are selling this product at much cheaper price on this channel. Get your game figured out, or just let me know why you are doing that so I can figure my game out here, right? So that's how I like to define it. So thank you so much, Damon, for that insight. So Steve, I'm actually going to move to you next. What is channel conflict in your experience in the industries that you focus on?
Well, there's really two main types of channel conflict. And what I try and coach the companies I work with is also to really think about channel partnership and just flip their brains around. First, though, the two types of channel conflict I just posted into the chat. There's a vertical channel conflict, which is where two partners in the same pipeline are essentially competing against each other. And the best example of that is that I'm a manufacturer. I sell to a bunch of dealers in the United States, and now I decide I'm going to sell online, and they're also selling online. That's the simplest, most obvious vertical channel conflict. The horizontal conflict is what you'd expect, is that all your dealers are competing against each other, on various different marketplaces. So if you start thinking about the whole thing in terms of channel partnership, then you really start talking about what can we do to reduce the conflict, right? And there's a whole host of things that we can talk about, but the main one, I think Damon touched on it, is communication and good agreements. Minimum advertised pricing. A quick example I have is I have a client, does roughly 60 million a year, and they basically said, okay, we have a minimum advertised price, and everybody has to have that. But they also said no one else is allowed to sell on Amazon except us. But if you look on their website and you look on Amazon, all of their prices are $1 to $2 more than the MAP everywhere else. Now, they make a killing on Amazon and on their website because of the brand authority they have, but they also make a killing through their distributors because their distributors never call them and say, hey, how come you're selling it for cheaper than me? And they're basically able to push their brand image forward because they're front and top of mind to people. And so oftentimes they'll look at Amazon and then just walk over to Home Depot, let's say Drive these days, and pick it up there and then be like, hey, I got it for $1 less. So that's just a good example of turning it into an opportunity.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's a fascinating example. And in my experience, I think that's probably going to be an ideal scenario where you could be competitive on Amazon by being $2 extra on your product, but then you are able to sell cheaper with your distributor. So you are able to please both of the worlds. I don't know how realistic that is going to be with a lot of businesses, but if you are able to do that, I think that's ideal, because you definitely don't want to burn bridges with your distributors, because they are probably bringing the majority of the revenue as of today. But obviously your strategic channel is going to be probably e-commerce. So you need to get your foot in the door there as well. Thank you so much for that insight, Steve. Now I'm actually going to move to Dave. Dave, would you like to provide your perspective, what you have seen from the channel conflict perspective, and what is channel conflict in your opinion?
Yeah, and for us, and I'm sure that we're going to have lots of conversation around this, but you really need to have some cooperation on the kinds of content that you're publishing. So not only are you publishing the right prices and not cannibalizing, using MSRPs and making sure that you have agreements, but you also need to make sure that the keywords that you're using so that you're getting found are in agreement. And if you as manufacturer are working with a dealer and that dealer has hired somebody like BusyWeb and is kicking your butt in SEO, then you're in trouble, right? Because all of a sudden your dealer is just stealing all of your business away. So how do you keep that from happening? And there are some ways that you can make sure that you're actually helping each other versus competing with each other. Great way to do that is backlinks, right? Making sure that you're using your pages as reference pages for your audience and for your dealers, making sure that you're controlling and managing the content and the essential information that all of your customers need to know about and all of the end users need to know about. All of that is going to help everybody if you do it right, but is going to be a nightmare if you just ignore it. And a lot of manufacturers just ignore it and they put their heads in the sand. They're like, oh yeah, it'll all work out in the end. My dealers are awesome. Your dealers are eating your lunch if you're not paying attention to this. So in SEO, in content, in marketing, you really need to be careful and work together in order to get co-opetition instead of just competition.
Yeah, completely agree. And in fact, I mean, the kind of insight you bring to the table, I mean, I was not expecting it to go, towards backlinks. But if you really think about it from the backlinks perspective, I mean, if you're a manufacturer and if you have 500 distributors, you can kill on Google if you have the relationships. They are not going to give you backlinks if they feel, you as a threat to their business. So you really need to have those relationships. If you have them, then you can really kill on Google. Your distributors are not going to have as much authority as you, just because you have that network. You control that network, but you have to have the fair business model to be successful in that. So I'm actually going to move to Jeff. Jeff, what is your perspective from your experience? What is channel conflict in your experience?
Yeah, I mean, great perspectives here. I'm like taking notes. I'm like, yeah, I've seen that too. I agree. So I'm going to try not to like repeat too much, because I feel like so much value has been already dropped on us. But I mean, what Dave just said, the paying attention, I think, is key. A lot of times, when we're doing product promo videos or training, safety, setup, install, whatever that might be from a video marketing perspective, we have to have this conversation, right? Like, do we white label this video? Do we, what can we talk about, or what can't we talk about, or how do our channel partners, and just all of that, right? So I think when companies have those difficult conversations, Chris mentioned fear. I think a lot of times companies don't want to address the elephant in the room, right? And so if you can have those difficult conversations, look at opportunities that maybe you or your distributors, channel partners haven't capitalized on. I mean, that's huge, right? So maybe go where the puck is going in Wayne Gretzky's quote there. And then also, I forget, maybe Damon or somebody mentioned this, like, look at your contracts, right? Like, what are you able to do both now and in the future? And then, adjust accordingly. So I could say a lot, but I feel like a lot of it's already been said. So great job.
Yeah, so some great insights overall, and you are absolutely right. I don't know how many people feel comfortable living in uncertainty. For one, I don't like any uncertainty. When you take the example of COVID, I mean, I just don't want to do that. So if you talk about difficult conversations, I would rather have them today. okay, than having them tomorrow, because I don't know what is going to happen tomorrow. Okay, let's just have them today. So yes, great point there. If you are going to have difficult conversation, the more upfront, the more open, the more honest you are with your distributors, the more they are going to help you take their perspective, help them with their business, and then they can help you as well. Thank you so much for that. So now we are actually going to move to the next question, and that is going to be related to benefits of effective channel conflict management. So I am actually going to come back to you, Chris, again. So from your experience, let's say if you are able to manage your channel effectively, your distributors are super happy. They are sending tons and tons of business. So tell us, more benefits of the effective channel management.
Well, obviously everybody's winning if that's happening, right? So I think in a symbiotic relationship where two partners are coming together, and many times it's many more than that, right? They're working together. They're leveraging the strengths of each, and in my world, again, manufacturers are great at building and engineering product and truly understanding how best to create the most productive piece of equipment, right? And then service that equipment, keep it up and running to the satisfaction of customers. Now, distributors are in the local areas providing the support to the local regions. They are maintaining the equipment. They're sometimes housing inventory, but they are that service arm, right? So I think when companies do this well, where they recognize that buying patterns are changing and they open up an e-commerce platform that everybody can live with, because I think there's a lot of mistakes, and I don't know if we're going to get into mistakes, but because you're asking about benefits, I'm going to kind of skip over that. But there's so many mistakes happening that we're not getting to leverage the benefits of the parties working together. And that's why I said early on that people are getting left behind, because then the building of that product brand and ensuring that it's a relevant brand in the future, so that the manufacturer stays in business and all these distributors who are providing that local and regional support are still in business and relevant. You have to solve this together, and turning to an online solution is a way to reduce friction. And if you can have that conversation and do it in a way that is meaningful for everyone, then truly everybody wins, including the customer. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, the customer is demanding this. And that's what we're feeling like we're in competition with each other. But the customer is saying, hey, this is the way I want to do business with you. Yeah. I want convenience, and I want it to be easy, right? And the way in which you manufacturer and you distributor are going to win is when you are convenient and you make it easy for me. And that's why they have to come together and solve this. It's for relevance in the future. The benefits that they've enjoyed in the past are in the past. And now they have to leverage how you build relationships with the end customer going forward. And a lot of that is turning to digital. And that's why we have to move in this direction. And I think the biggest benefit is that customers win, and manufacturers and distributors get to have a life in the future. That's it.
Yeah, completely agree, Chris. And you actually touch on some very important points. And one of the most important point is going to be, if you are going to be competing with your own channel, obviously the customers are going to feel that. Yes. Okay, so you have to come across as one team. You cannot be, hey, this is my distributor business. Hey, this is my manufacturing business. You have to create the compensation model aligned to make sure you are coming across as one team. And that you have to really feel in your hearts that these guys are part of my extended arms, or they are not part of your business, but they are your extended arm. And if you don't feel that they really belong to you and you don't care for their business, obviously they are not going to care for you. That's how this world works. So yeah, so really care for your channel partners, everybody who is involved in the equation. And then customer is going to feel that, I'm really dealing with one team. I'm not dealing with 5,000 teams here. Thank you so much, Chris, for that. So, Jeff, I'm actually going to give you an opportunity because, last time everybody had spoken everything, so you didn't get much chance. So now, what are some of the benefits in your opinion?
All right, buckle up. Here we go. No. Yeah, I think everybody wins. I mean, so one thing is, finding ways to even stand out, right? If you have distributors and channel partners and you can sell on your platform and Amazon and all this, but maybe, certain distributors or channel partners have different incentives they can offer. Or maybe for the company, you can add customizations or certain customer service aspects. So, obviously we know that the customers don't always only buy on price, right? There is that convenience, there is that fast delivery, or, there's other aspects. So I think it's, if you really know your customer inside and out, exactly what they want, some of this will get easier because you can address their needs more clearly than the competition. I mean, I'm amazed at some of the huge companies I work with. Some of them still struggle with, like, who's our customer avatar? What do they actually want and need? We're making all these assumptions. Well, they want this, and what do they actually want and need? So I think that's where, in this utopian situation that we're talking about, is everybody working together, but trying to figure out maybe a win-win or a win-win-win for the customer, you, and your channel partners.
Yep, I completely agree. So we are talking about right now the channel conflict, but you cannot forget the fundamentals. I mean, if you don't understand your customers, if you don't understand your customer journeys, and how they are mapped out, and if they are not mapped out correctly, then I don't know how you are going to map your channels. So yeah, right. So the fundamentals are always going to be there. So since we are talking about the journeys, I'm pretty sure, Dave, you are probably going to have follow-up comments there. So absolutely. In your opinion, what are the benefits of the channel conflict management?
Yeah, so really when you're looking at managing your conflicts inside of channels, it's all about managing the entire experience. Jeff actually touched on this already, but your buyer's journey is not just you. You have everyone else that is supplying and distributing. You have all of the other touch points. I think I've used this stat before in these conversations, but B2B, and in particular manufacturing, customers will on average hit 80 links. They'll do 80 clicks before they ever contact that business. How many of those clicks are representative of your message, are representative of your product? And if you work well with all of the other channels that you're promoting, and if they're all pointing to the same thing, if they all have the same message and they're all reinforcing, 8 of the 9 or 10 times that those people see that out of their 80 clicks, it's all going to be an agreement, and it's going to become a foregone conclusion that they need to work with you. You're building trust, you're building authority and link domain, you're building everything that you need to have in order to just be the solution for your customers. So yes, channel conflict can be a huge benefit if there is cooperation inside of those conflicts. Yes, you're going to have different methods or different sales models across those different distribution channels. Sometimes they're going to have different audiences that they're intended for. But if it's all working together and if you're supporting your brand, there's no way to lose. Unless you just, again, ignore it, and then all hell's going to break loose. So you just need to make sure that you're careful and that you're cooperating and making sure that as many of those 80 clicks are revolving around you, your products, your services, and getting them to the next step in the sale.
Yeah, and I always love these insights from Dave because the way he likes to think, I don't think anybody was thinking in that direction. So when you think about the 80 clicks to get to your product and offerings, and obviously if they are going to be shared by your partners, you still own them. Again, if you have very comprehensive the channel conflict management strategy, and if your distributors are going to feel that, I'm really your competitor, you don't care for me, then obviously they are going to send that somewhere else because distributors technically can carry your competitor's product, and they do if you don't make them feel comfortable. So on that note, Steve, I'm actually going to move to you. Okay, so in your experience, what are the benefits of effective channel conflict management?
I love that. I've got about 7 or so, and I know there's more. The number one benefit is growth. So I'll leave that. The rest of it will speak towards that. One of the ways you get that growth is authority by proxy. You know, if you are on Nordstrom's selling your product, Nordstrom's has brand cachet, and therefore you have that brand cachet. If you're in the outdoor industry and you're being sold at REI online, well, REI happens to have a very strict set of rules that means their products have a certain quality and you know, a certain environmental awareness as well to even be allowed there. So proxy is really important. Authority through presence is one of my favorites because it's basically the top of mind awareness. Said on the ground floor where Dave is going to love it. If you have all these people that you're selling to who are taking the lead from you at being a very good brand manager and doing all their SEO, well, you could dominate page one of the organic search results because all your competitors, who are really your partners that you're selling to, are actually all working together to dominate that. And so you can push out your actual competitors. And then another one, when you get that, you get authority of market share. So once I think that's kind of like a snowball rolling down. Well, snowball's not a good idea because it melts, but something's rolling downhill, but it's positive. The addition thing is you get, I think this is number 5, access to target customers and customer access, meaning the customers have access to you. So if you're in a shop in a small town and you know, somebody doesn't have the internet or they can't wait 3 days, they have access to it because you're managing that channel and somebody's selling that in that town. And 2 of the things are more data oriented. When you have good channel management, you have better and more varied data with which to make decisions that not only will better you, but will be better for your partners. And in the end, that will be better for your customers because you'll have better customer retention and increased purchase frequency. And it won't matter if it comes from you or from Home Depot, REI, Bob's Bait and Tackle in Eufaula, Alabama. You've got that saturation and that repeat customers. That's my list that I popped in while everybody was chatting. Thank you.
So one thing that I really like about that list is going to be the prep that you have done. And I love your competitive spirit because last time you said that you were actually going to raise the bar because Ben Searcy, who was on the last panel, was super prepared, and Steve is prepared today. You can see in his points and the way he's talking today. Okay, so Steve, I'm actually going to need some help, for our listeners. So
Okay.
When you say authority by proxy, do you want to break down that further, what that means for the listeners? I know you touched a little bit. Explain a little bit more in terms of why this is going to be relevant for them and how this can translate into a benefit for them as far as channel conflict management goes.
Yeah. Well, so there's 2 angles that I would throw at you for this. One is that we clearly have in our minds brands, and everybody's different, brands that we hold in high esteem, right? And Nordstrom's positions themselves differently in the marketplace than Kmart. So if you resonate, your product resonates with Kmart, then you're going to get presence by proxy by aligning yourself with Kmart. If your brand resonates with Nordstrom's customers, you're not going to get brand proxy presence from Kmart. You're going to get it from Nordstrom's. So you don't want to mix those up. Additionally, I would say that if let's say you have a product that would sell well in a fishing tackle store across the country and also in Home Depot, Eagles, Lowe's, hardware stores. One thing that I've actually seen happen in real life numerous times is that a paid advertising campaign in a certain area, like in this case, it was Texas and New Mexico, where this company did not have a sales rep and they did not have on the ground brand presence. You could see on the map for the marketing, the return on ad spend for the country, that those were 2 states where there weren't actually people looking for them. And we actually watched as they hired a salesperson to take over that territory, got into Home Depot and Lowe's and into a couple dozen small mom and pop shops, that within months, their brand presence by proxy, sort of essentially, on the web went through the roof. So that's another angle that you can take is that, you know, your presence by proxy in a location actually raises awareness, and then they're going to go to the web and look for you, as opposed to being on the web and saying, I want to be associated with Nordstrom's or Kmart or Lowe's, which is another form of brand proxy. Does that make
amazing. Sense? It does. It does. Thank you so much for that. So
Thank
now
you.
we are going to move a little quicker, you know, just because we have 2 or 3 different topics to cover, and we want to make sure that we are able to cover all of that. So obviously, we wanted to cover the types of different channel conflicts. I know Steve, you know, touched briefly on those, but I don't know if we have any other types. This is a slightly more technical question, so we are going to do quick round fire. You know, Chris, do you have any you know, comments with respect to the types of channel conflict that he has not already covered by any chance?
Well, yeah, I think somebody had covered horizontal and vertical, so the different types were covered there. I might have mentioned it briefly, but I'll just restate it here. Sometimes your own sales channel can perceive your e-commerce as a conflict, and it is something that you have to have good communication on internally.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much for that. And I think I said round fire. I meant rapid fire round, and my brain is not working clearly, as you can see. So Damon, I'm actually going to move to you. Okay, you know, in your experience, what are different types? Are we missing anything? Any other types that you have seen? Damon, you are on mute.
Sorry, I think we've covered it pretty well. It's you got a good in depth with Steve there and Chris. That I really like that one, Chris, because most people don't think of the internal company conflicts you can have, especially in a large organization, and when they're geographically diverse, it's even harder to do. But that's one that can make a real difference, and it goes back again to the communication and understanding too.
I agree. Thank you so much, Damon, for that. So, Dave, I'm actually going to move to you next. You know, any types are we missing here? Any other types that you might be aware of?
Yeah, I think I actually want to layer on top of what Chris had said in that, you know, we have horizontal channels and we have vertical and internal. And so inside of that internal channel, you're going to get cultural pushback if you're not careful and if you're not managing it, right? One of the more pithy sayings that I like to throw out, and you know, I probably shouldn't even say this, but salespeople are coin operated. If you can't give them the direct compensation that they need in order to benefit themselves, they're not going to go for it. And so how do you manage around that? How do you make sure that all of the wonderful things you're doing with your distributors or that you're doing across all of your channels aren't being cannibalized by somebody that's just trying to make a home mortgage payment, right? So that's handled through management. That's handled through CRM and internal reporting. So you need to make sure that you're making allowances so that your team has the information and details that they need in order to all move in the right direction. I mean, it all comes down to being consistent and thoughtful in how you communicate, how you market, and how you manage across your channels. So as long as you're all moving in the same direction, fantastic. But if you're not, you need to go back and really take stock of what is happening, what's working, where are our sales coming from. Maybe one of your distributors is going gangbusters, or maybe one of your salespeople is absolutely crushing. Find out what they're doing and leverage that across your entire network. And that's going to give you much more leverage in the long run.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much for that, Dave. Jeff, I'm actually going to move to you next. What are we missing any types in your experience?
I want to piggyback off that just because I think there's, you know, some other thoughts. You know, we've all seen marketing and sales go head to head, right? And especially as we're looking at digital marketing and new ways where, you know, instead of one-to-one, that sales call or that in-person trade show or that whatever, it's one-to-many. And so I think companies are trying to wrap their heads around not just channel conflict out there, but like in here, like how the heck do we do this? And that's really hard. I mean, you know, some of the materials that my company creates with websites or videos or whatever, like that's a conversation we have. You know, sometimes the sales manager will kind of pipe up. You can sense that they're feeling a little threatened, right? And so it's just trying to figure out how can everyone win, and how can the salespeople not feel like marketing is trying to, usurp them or go over them or whatever with digital marketing, and just trying to figure out some of those solutions. So I mean, it can be as simple as obviously you have regions and territories, but like digitally, you can still do things with digital marketing, whether it's email marketing or tagging things on the back end, or there's ways to kind of like call your area. So those things can be overcome, but it's just a learning curve, as we all know, and a challenge.
Yeah, completely agree. Thank you so much. Yes, it is. Thank you so much, Jeff, for that. So, Steve, I know that you were going to be prepared, so that's why I wanted to keep you for last, right? So now tell us, what are other types that we are missing in the list?
I don't know. I'm actually coming up with a blank because I was thinking about the 7 ones that I put up there. I'm sorry to disappoint. I've got 7 things that they can go wrong.
I'm giving you a hard time, brother.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. So I think, we are going to move to the strategies. I think that's going to be the most important. That's what I think everybody wants to know about, what are some of these strategies to be able to overcome the challenges and to reap the benefits that we have discussed. So let's, if we talk about these strategies in managing the channel conflict, and I know we sort of, dance around a little bit about some of the strategies, but let's sort of hash them out, right? So, Chris, what are some of these strategies that you have seen? Obviously, the communication is going to be important, and the clear transparency is going to be important. But what other things that you have seen working in managing these channels, especially when you talk about these newer channels? I think they are the trickier, in my opinion, to manage.
Sure. Well, I think a mistake that people are making is that they're just not getting started because of this. So the first strategy is that they have to get started with something. Okay. Now, I have met companies, manufacturers specifically, who haven't even opened up an online sales channel to their distribution network. Right. So they're not even getting all of the benefits of just selling to your channel online and all of the great things that happen in that process. So you can go back and listen to past episodes of what all the value that e-commerce brings you, right? But the thing about your distributors, dealer partners, is they're going to be very critical of you. So when you start something, they're going to help you get better at it faster, because they're going to point out all your flaws in a way that a customer would just leave you. A distributor will not, right? So they're going to help you get better, whether it's better information, better images, better details, and they will make your process refined before you take in the next strategy of opening that information up to a larger audience. So that for me is part of at least a minimum critical first step, is you've got to start selling to your distributors. The other thing is that for the companies that we've helped at least do that, there's a high level of adoption, right? So because there's high adoption, you get those efficiencies internally very quickly that allows you to reallocate resources to start doing the analysis and other things you need to make that next step easier, because now you've freed up some things. Potentially it's resources that can help you shift and start having those communications. Talk about, the level of your data, how your product looks, so that you can ease the communication strategy with your distribution partners to take that next step to selling to that wider audience. So I think it can be just a part of that initial launch process for you. And then ultimately, where I think the next strategy is that, the manufacturers that we work with, is they open it up to an anonymous audience, right? So now the anonymous user is seeing information, but maybe they're limiting what they get to do. So maybe they can't place an order. They need to go to a dealer. So it takes them to a dealer locator. So they're getting access to information. They're getting part of their 80 clicks that Dave mentioned that they have to do, and they're getting it from the manufacturer. The manufacturer's controlling the brand, they're controlling the messaging, but maybe price, availability, and the order aren't available until they go to the dealer. Now, I don't really like that. I think it's an inconvenience for the customer. And we really have to think through, is that the right strategy? But that is a step that I see a lot of manufacturers taking. And then ultimately, when they have the right communication and everybody is on board, they launch in a way that builds the relationship, and the customer is winning, and therefore everybody's winning like we talked about before. So I'll stop there.
Amazing insights there, and I am probably going to have a follow-up exercise for you. Okay, it's going to be a scenario, and then you are going to tell us what is going to be the strategy in your perspective. So,
Sure.
Chris, you have lived the, let's say, the equipment space. You know how the traditional e-commerce worked. So, as you know, you mentioned that sometimes you might not even have any sort of digital help for your distributors. But in the traditional world, let's say if we talk about 10 years back, 15 years back, then the manufacturers had sort of the partner portal, and they would probably redirect the traffic to them, that you need to go to this distributor, and it could be a physical location. They'll simply tell that, dial this number, dial this address, because they are going to have far higher domain authority. So even today, if you actually go to some of these car manufacturers or the expensive purchases, they are probably going to have the distributor directory, the partner directory, or the sales rep directory, right? That is actually driving or navigating the traffic to the distributors. Now, you are actually going DTC in this model, okay? So basically, you are actually trying to compete with your own traffic, right? Because if you are going to sell directly, then if the traffic is coming to you, then you need to make a decision whether you give this traffic to your distributor or you serve this yourself. So let's say if you were running this company where you sort of were distributing all of these leads to your distributors, but now you are trying to eat it yourself first. So how would you manage the expectation in this scenario?
Well, I would have a conversation with my distribution network, and I would have a conversation internally with executives, because oftentimes they're the ones that fear this change the most, because they come from the traditional model. They've built these relationships with their distributors, and they're the ones most fearing that next change. And I think you have to talk about, again, what are the strengths of both of these? And I would take care of that customer as the manufacturer. I would meet their needs. Now, depending on the level of the relationship with my distribution network. Now, some distributors are not exclusive to manufacturers, and they will sell competing products. And maybe they haven't been your best partners. They're your partners you've got, but they're limiting your growth. They're not allowing you to get all of the benefits that you could be. Maybe you've been living with something for a long time and you haven't been changing it because e-commerce wasn't something that was available forever, right? But changing the mindset internally to make the shift is challenging. So I'd have conversations up, I'd have conversations down, and I would bring influencers to the table, my best dealers, my best companies that have the relationships. I would make sure that they're whole, that they believe that when we do this, we all win together. And I would service that customer, but I would do it in a way that the customers understand when they should be going to the distribution channel and when they should be leveraging me as the manufacturer for the information. So that's the way I would handle it in today's environment, for sure.
Okay, so amazing insights there and amazing handling of the scenario. So this scenario is going to be applicable for everybody. Everybody is going to be sharing their own strategy first, and then they are going to share their perspective in terms of how they are going to handle it. Now, Dave, I'm actually going to move to you next, and the reason for that is because this is about handling the traffic from the web perspective, because you are sort of sharing the piece of pie that you were sharing before with your distributors. Now you are trying to eat it yourself. So if you were actually managing this, your business, or if somebody comes to you and asks for your advice, what is the best way of managing the expectations so that my distributors are not going to be disappointed, but I can probably have some piece of the pie for me as well if I'm actually trying to go DTC in this model?
For sure. Thanks, Sam. So I think as you're trying to get more leverage and to rebuild for an existing distributor network and really help them, what you really need to do is just that. You need to help them. You're not going to get people to work with you unless you give them the resources that they need to be successful in their jobs. You know, some of these distributors are going to have different audiences, different channels. There's probably going to be some amazing opportunities for you in underserved markets. And so really listening to what those other channels are telling you and making sure that you're repurposing your content and giving them everything that they need to go ahead and crush it in their space is going to help. And of course, you know, just like Jeff, I do marketing and sites and growth for my audience. Having a seemingly limitless supply of resources for those people that are looking is going to make you the clear solution. So if you have a specific product, if you have a specific service, giving your audiences, giving your channels as many options as possible and having it all point back to you is going to make you the most useful. And if you want to rank on Google, being useful is the bee's knees. So making sure that you're just there and that you're the only one and the audience authority owner is going to make sure that you rank well, make sure that you convert well, and make sure that you're helping your other channels to be as successful as possible. If they see the dollar signs and working with you, they're going to do more. Give them the option.
Completely agree. Thank you so much, Dave, for that. So now, Jeff, I'm actually going to move to you. So in your perspective, what are some of the strategies that you have seen working? And let's say if you were the business owner, how would you handle this scenario where you have the web traffic going to your traditional distributor, but then you are also trying to manage your DTC? How would you handle this?
Yeah, I'm glad you called on me next because I was really excited to talk. Yeah, a lot of times, at least for your channels, it's I think like Dave said, like they're not obviously just selling your stuff. So like, how helpful can you be? Can you be the most helpful in getting material and training and content and just stuff, right? You know, people are hungry for more material. Those 80 clicks, we've got to gratify that. So that's one aspect. And then being kind of the king of that. I mean, one of the reasons why I love working with manufacturers as a marketer is most manufacturers aren't even getting the tip of the iceberg of what they could or should be doing from a marketing perspective. There's so much out there that they could be doing, should be doing. So like right now, it's the Wild West. I mean, if you just create regular video content, if you make webinars, if you start a podcast, if you write articles, I could go on and on. That's how you get ahead. And right now, hardly any companies are doing that or doing it well. So right now, I really think if you're going, direct to consumer, grab that bull by the horns, create content, showcase your expertise, and you're going to crush it. You can tell I'm getting a little amped up here. I was trying to find like 7 points, like Steve had, but I didn't quite get there.
It gets very competitive in this room, Jeff. Trust me.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so next I'm actually going to move to Damon. Damon, what are some of these strategies that you have seen working? And help me with the scenario as well.
Well, I tell you what, I'm going to focus on the things that the other people have said because there's a lot of good stuff in here, really. And I love these panels because what I try to do is take enough notes to absorb half of what you hear because there's so much value in this. When you go back to what Dave said about Dave and Steve and Jeff, I don't remember quite exactly. I just remember writing it down. Just think of the opportunity you have to dominate Google as a brand by using your distribution partners in the different locations. Oh my goodness. And if you could give those, again, giving them value so they can win more, give them the keywords, I think as Dave was talking about, give them the resources as Jeff was talking about to be super strong in their brand and doing that. And then you come back on the backside, and Chris has talked about this before, and being open and honest and sharing with these distributors about how much revenue did we have yesterday? And looking at the data, as Chris said, and how much revenue do we have today? How much do you have? How much did we get direct? And let the customers decide. Because look at the big box retailers like Home Depot or somebody like that. I can go to my Home Depot store, I can buy at Home Depot and come and pick it up. I can have Home Depot ship it directly. Let the customer decide. You're gonna if you're Caterpillar and you're making bulldozers, let the customer decide if they want that piece sent to them, if they want to go pick it up from the distributor. Yeah. But if on the backside, if you're looking at this and you're the one that's helped everyone throughout all the way to the customer, your distributors get smarter, your customers get smarter and get it just like they want. And then you're on the backside, you're being smart with the data and going, hey, listen, distributor, yes, we had some business from this, but your business continued to grow as well. We all grew from this. That's how you do, as I think Steve or someone was saying about, you just dominate as a brand. That gets me fired up. So I don't have anything new. It just fires me up to think about these things in conjunction.
No, but by the way, I mean, that is so true. If you actually change everything from customer's perspective, everybody's life is going to be so easy. You don't have to fight it out. Just think from the customer's perspective. Let them make the decision. They are the boss. Okay, guys, so I think we are close to our time now. Steve, I don't know if you have any short commentary there related to the strategy and how you would handle this scenario. I can take probably short comments.
I was actually going to say what you just said about Damon, because Damon said, oh, I didn't have anything to add, but he actually had something really important to add, which is you need to put it out in all those places that you can in a positive way, using all the strategies that Jeff and Chris and Dave and even Damon have talked about, and let the customer decide. You gotta measure that. Don't take it away from them because you don't want to put it in some place because you're afraid, as Chris would say, right? Like, let the customer decide.
Amazing. Love it, guys. So now we can take short closing advice, maybe a sentence, considering our time. So Chris, I'll start with you. One sentence closing advice, please.
There's pressure to get started with your digital sales strategy. So I recommend move away from the fear, have the conversations with your channel partners and get started.
Okay, love it. Thank you so much, Chris. Dave, I'm actually going to move to you. What is your closing advice?
Think about what your customers and your channel partners need and give them everything that they need to succeed. The rest will take care of itself.
Love it. Thank you so much for that deep advice, Dave. Damon, I'm actually going to move to you next. What is your closing advice?
I'll just echo what Chris says. Get started. Get started. It's going to happen. Your competitors are going to do it. I don't care what you're in. Your competitors are going to do it. And if you don't, you are going to fall behind. But if you do, you're going to find that it's a lot better than you think.
Yeah, and honestly, if I think about it, she actually stole your line because you are the one who always says that, you know what, do something, start something. Thank you so much, guys.
I just agree.
Hey, Jeff, what is your closing advice?
I think it's who, not how. Sometimes companies don't know how to do it, so they don't do it, right? So look at the who is doing it, because we all know that companies are doing this. So whether it's a consultant or a other company or somebody internally, like find the who that can get you where you want to go.
Okay, amazing. Love it. Thank you so much, Jeff. Steve, what is your closing advice?
Mine is don't be afraid to say no. In fact, I'll go a step further. Be fearless, which you see me say every once in a while, about saying no. You don't have to have every vendor on Amazon to be a successful brand. Patagonia is a good example. Nobody's on Amazon except them, and they don't go below MAP pricing except for old dead stock. And they maintain brand image that way, and it actually benefits all the other retailers.
Okay, love it. Thank you so much, Steve. And thank you so much, guys. You guys are my favorite team. And guys, if you are joining for the first time, we meet every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. And we discuss one topic related to e-commerce. And we are going to have very exciting topic in the panel next week. So don't miss next week's show. On that note, thank you so much, everybody, for your insight and time.
Thank you.
Great
Thank
stuff,
you.
everyone. See you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.